Hello YouTube, Matthew here and welcome to another video on my channel. And in today's video I'm going to be presenting to you guys about the digital forensic process. So this digital forensic process is what we're going to use as digital forensic examiners as our guidelines for doing our jobs in the field, in the lab, and eventually in court or anywhere else. So stick on with me to learn about this and let's get on with the video. The process that we live by as digital forensic examiners is a very easy process to outline. It has some very cool steps to it. So the first step of our process is identification of the evidence. Our second step is extracting the evidence from its source. Our third step is going to be analyzing this evidence that we extracted from source and coming to conclusions from whatever we found. Then our fourth step is going to be documentation of what we found and the conclusions that we came to ultimately lead into our last step, which is going to be presentation of whatever evidence we found in our little charts, tables, reports, PowerPoint slides, or whatever we made for it. So let's go into a little bit more depth on these steps.
Hold the phone!
So as digital forensic examiners, the first part of our process is going to be identification. And this step is one of the most crucial for setting the groundwork of our investigation. Because depending on the methods of acquisition of our data and a laptop computer or just a desktop like the one that I'm using right now, hard drives of the spinning type or solid state drives, that process may be much different than, say, taking data off of an iPad, much like the one that I see next to me as I record this, or even a security camera from a retail store that just got robbed a couple of days ago. And I think the security camera may be easier to take data off of since it probably has a cloud server or an SD card inside it. But for our purposes right now, we're mainly thinking of computers and mobile devices like our cell phone. So yeah, this will also mean that depending on the device, if it's a cell phone, you have to keep it on some sort of battery for the rest of the process. And also you have to keep it isolated from any networks. So not only do you have to bring a battery with you, you have to also bring some signal blocking device, such as a Faraday cage. And if it was a computer, you could do something similar to that. And actually, you may need a bigger power bank for this computer because it may be something that doesn't just sit battery and that will die off of charge within hours if you're very far from your lab. So now let's move on towards our second step, which is extraction.
Access granted.
So when it comes to our second step of the process, which is acquisition, we have many different types of ways of doing this. One of the most basic ways of doing this is going into a logical acquisition. And that logical acquisition is just to get what you can get without doing too much damage to the device. Whereas a physical acquisition is getting everything that you want in sort of system dump type of way. And you can also get things from a chip off method, which in a mobile phone means taking the whole phone apart, taking the chip out, and saying, I want this chip, I will unsolder every flash and the RAM from the chip, and I will use whatever's in there, and I will use whatever process to get that stuff out of there so that I can have everything that I can ever want from the phone. When it comes to logical acquisitions, which are going to be our first thing, a logical acquisition can take place in a number of ways. So for things such as Android phones, which allow you to install the drivers on your computer and look directly through the phone, you can get stuff out of it that way. You can copy things directly from the drive of the Android phone. And after that, logical acquisitions can also be done with software that parses through the thing and gets whatever is available without root access. And root access will be very important for us later on in a physical acquisition, which means everything. When it comes to a physical acquisition of getting everything, like I said before, a purely physical acquisition like a chip off is possible for some devices, but not for all devices. The thing that is accessible for all devices is a physical acquisition in the form of a file system dump. So when it comes to phones like your Android phones, the process will be different than, say, if we were to do it on an iPhone. So for an Android phone, the way of doing that would be to go in and root the device. And in order to root the device, you first have to make sure that the device is unlocked from the carriers. So that means it won't have code to lock its ability to connect to certain carriers other than the carrier that it was first initiated with. So in order to make sure that the device is not carrier unlocked, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go with the carrier that it was issued by and make sure that it is not locked, and either make them unlock it for you or get a code from the manufacturer that we'll use later on to do the carrier unlocking. So in the second step of rooting an Android phone, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to download the Android platform tools and drivers for the phone from the internet. And why you do this is because you want not only the drivers for the phone that you were given, but also you want to be able to use the fastboot command on your computer. And this fastboot command will allow us to issue commands to the phone and give the phone apps and things for our root and install programs on the phone from our computer. So now after you do that, what you're going to have to do is go into the phone and make sure two settings within developer settings are turned on. And these two settings are going to be your USB debugging and OEM unlocking. And these two will help us with the next steps of our process. So the next step of our process will be to issue fastboot commands to the phone. So the fastboot commands that you will want to issue to the phone are going to be different based on manufacturers, but the first one that you're going to want to issue to the phone is going to be issued to SIM unlock the phone if you need to do that. But after you SIM unlock the phone, you're going to want to do fastboot commands that do the rebooting of the phone and that unlock the bootloader, which is what's going to allow us to actually do the root. And at this point, once you unlock the bootloader, everything in the phone is up to you, and you can download whichever programs are necessary based on whatever you read, based on the phone that you have, to take out the data from this phone. And now let's move on to data acquisition from iPhone. So with iPhones, the whole process is going to be different based on the iPhone model that you have. So phones from the A5 to the A11 chip are going to be vulnerable to an exploit called Checkmate. It will allow us to use a special tool called Checkrain in order to take all of the data off of the phone. And in order to do this, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to install a program on your Mac or on your Linux or Windows PC called Uncover, and also a program to sideload things onto your iPhone. So in some cases you may have to sideload an app onto your iPhone, but in other cases this Uncover app might suffice. So what you're going to do with this Uncover app is you're going to run it and follow its instructions. And once you do that, an app called Uncover or Checkrain will be added to the home screen of your device. And after that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to open the app and press the button to root the phone. And if the jailbreak works, you'll get an app store called either Cydia or Chimera, I think. And after you get this app store, you're going to have to download all of the necessary tools that whatever documentation you've read does in order to make a full file system. And also, in order to make this file system dump, you're going to need a file transfer protocol service. And once you get that service, you run it and SSH into your phone and copy all of your data from your phone from its user partition, and you copy that to your computer, and then you'll have your full file system. You can do whatever you need to with it at that point. In addition to the methods that I just discussed right now, there are also several applications out there, such as Alchemsoft Suite for macOS, the Magnet Axiom Suite for Windows, the Celebrate Suite for Windows as well, Belgasoft X for Windows, and the Samori Suite for Windows and macOS that allow you to gather data from devices like phones and computers without having to do much on your end. All that you have to do is buy a license to the software, since it's an enterprise software, and after you buy that license, you can do a whole bunch of acquisition types based on the data that you need. And this is very convenient for us if we don't want to go through the trouble of identifying which device that we have and if it's compatible with certain types of acquisition type through very detailed research and going out and getting all the tools that we need and finding out that some tools don't work and trying to find different tools that do work and maybe those tools don't work, and then finding it very hard for ourselves to get the job done. So these apps really take that kind of friction out of you by including a bunch of methods for a bunch of phones, and they always try to keep up to date with the methods of acquisition of these phones by making both open source editions and proprietary in-house editions to their software. So you'll be rest assured that cracking into your phone and getting the data out of it will be as easy as pie. All that you have to do is follow the instructions that are prompted within the program in order to get the data out. And now we can move on to our next step, which is analysis of the data.
Let's see that in an instant replay.
So when it comes to analyzing the data that we freshly grabbed from the device that's in question, whether it be a phone or an image from a computer or anything else, what we're going to first have to do is check to see if we can analyze the file system by hand. And sometimes we can do that because it gives us everything. Or in some cases, we'll want to do it by hand at the beginning, just to do it by hand so that we can have a better, more holistic view of what we have. So analyzing these pieces of data by hand can be a very monumental task for us if we don't know what we're looking at and what we're looking for. And that's where many trainings come in hand from many companies. So there's very expensive trainings from companies like Belgasoft and Cyber5W or Hexordia that will allow us to gain the skills that we need to analyze some of the data on our own before we run it through any program. And I have on my channel some series of Android forensics, and I'm running an iOS forensics series as well on this channel that can also teach you guys a thing or two about analyzing iOS devices. So you can use these sources as well as other free and paid resources like certifications and online courses to see if you can find the data that you need. But if for any reason you can't find that data, that's where the programs come in. So you have open source, like Autopsy will allow you to put an image into it and it parses the full image out, and you can find things based on what type of data you want. So if you want call data, it may have call data in there. If you want data from the phone's usage will probably be in there somewhere. And if you want pictures, you can also get pictures out of it, and so on and so forth. But be aware that sometimes this Autopsy software doesn't parse everything out, and that's why you'll need to use extra tools. So for basically everything, you can use tools like Magnet Axiom and Belgasoft X. It'll give you a more detailed version of whatever that it is that you want from the image, and you can easily put that into a report. But sometimes with phone images, you may not get everything that you need with any of the software. So that's where, at least for phones and other things, Alexis Bignoni's software, the logs, events, and protocol parsers, that's where those come in. So there's one for Android, which is Eliap, and there's another for iOS, which is iLiap. And these LIAPs, or leaps for short, get a lot of the data that you may want from the phones. And I'm sure that there's also ones that he made for computer images as well. But the ones that I'm most familiar with are the ones for Android and iOS, because I've done a lot of CTFs and practice on iOS and Android images. So with those, you can get a more holistic look at what it is that you have from the databases, from the protobufs, or from the preferences lists on iPhone images, and basically everything in a cooler visual format than you'll get from doing by hand or also doing it by other apps sometimes. But sometimes other apps like Magnet Axiom, the Celebrate stuff, and Belgasoft X will do a better job at taking the data. But it's up to you to find out what you want and if it's represented best in one of the softwares or all of the softwares or just some of them. But as I've heard from many people, it's best to not just use it by hand or by one software that you push the button for, or by just a couple of things. Run it through as many ways as possible, because you may miss something that's very crucial to your investigation from one, but you'll get it from another. And this leads us to our next steps, which are documentation and presentation, which I will discuss next.
Read the docs.
So really, when it comes to the fourth part of the process that I outlined previously, which is called documentation, this documentation process is done all throughout whatever investigation we're doing. So the first part of this is establishing the chain of custody. So this includes writing down the location of the device, the time and date of the evidence's recovery, a description of whatever the items that you recovered, the condition of the items, and the markings on the items, among other things. And this will be very important for us later on, because if any of these things were altered, then they're going to be on very shaky legal grounds. And this also goes for the evidence of your file system. So one thing that we do as forensic examiners with our file systems is once we take them off the phone, we make sure to take a hash of everything to make sure that it's right. And then after we do each step of the analysis process, we keep on taking hashes of the image to make sure it's the same. And after doing all of those hashes and making sure things are the same, we put that in our report, that throughout each step of the process that we took, everything was the same on the image. And also for documentation, what we want to do is document everything that we see that's relevant to us. So if we see, say, a picture of another phone that was taken in a stolen phone case, or if we see the parts of a car, like the catalytic converter that was stolen in a car theft case, or if we see illegal drugs on the phone, we take note of all of the things like that that may be related to our case, so that we can put things into a report later on that will establish either some sort of evidence towards whatever person that held the phone being guilty of whatever crimes they committed or did or was somewhere, or that they weren't guilty of the crime or somewhere, or in whatever type of state that we're trying to prove that they're in. And after we get a nice report written, we'll submit it to our stakeholders or to the court. And then comes the last step of our process, which is the presentation.
Griffin guilty of murder in the first degree.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no! Oh yeah!
Okay, now let's talk about step 5 of the forensic process, which is the presentation. So if you are at this step of the process now, congratulations, you made it through the arduous process of going to the field, gathering all of your sources of data, consolidating all those sources of data, and turning them into bits, and analyzing these bits so that you can get all of the information that they have within them, and in turn using this information to write a report that helps you in your process, submitting that report and developing a presentation that you will use either in defense of the person that you are or against the person that you are prosecuting. Now, in step 5 of the process, you are presenting all of the things that you've created, and you have to make compelling arguments, because whether you're a prosecutor or you're a defense forensic investigator, you'll be ultimately helping prove that the person who's being prosecuted is innocent and did not commit the crime. Or if you are on the prosecuting side, you are making compelling arguments that this person or these people did commit the crime that they are being accused of. And ultimately, all of the things that you say will be used by the judge and the jury to either convict or exonerate the person of the crime that they were accused of. And you will probably have a huge impact on the case, because the things that you found may very well be a very big deal in the frame of reference of the case. Now, after this very stressful process, you can rest easy knowing that you help the justice process. And after doing this process multiple times and learning step by step, you can get better and better at putting together reports, presenting them, and making sure that things go well for you and the side that you are representing on the case. Now, for those of you who've gotten this far in the video, I hope you enjoyed it and found a lot of its information useful. If you did, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to learn more about digital forensics, feel free to watch everything that are in the cards, either now or to follow. And thank you very much for watching. Enjoy forensics and have a great day. Catch you in the next video.